Hello everyone, this is Mom V. Welcome to my channel. Join me as I go through the presentation of my very first video in this channel. And the topic I have chosen is something interesting and beautiful, and that is the structure and function of a generalized flower. So without much further ado, let me go straight to our topic. The structure and function of a generalized flower. A generalized flower or a complete flower has four whorls. Four whorls. The first whorl is the sepal, otherwise known as the calyx, collectively called the calyx. The second whorl are the petals, collectively called the corolla. The third whorl is the stamen, collectively called the androecium. And then the fourth whorl is the pistil or the gynoecium. Right. I have drawn a generalized flower ahead of time. So we could start straight away. So the first whorl is here. These are the sepals. Collectively, they constitute the calyx. The sepals are modified leaves, and their function is to protect the bud. So while the flower is still developing, it is wrapped by the sepal. The second whorl are the petals. The petals. The petals in general are enlarged, colorful, and very conspicuous because their main function is to attract pollinators. Like for example, the butterflies, certain birds, uh, certain other pollinators. So to attract them, so they should be brightly colored or they should be very conspicuous. Though in certain flowers, the petals may not be colorful or conspicuous, but they usually have a compensatory adaptation, which could come, for example, in the form of scent to attract the pollinators. Together, the petals constitute the corolla. The third whorl is the stamen. Each stamen consists of an anther and a filament. The anther is the expanded top. This is where pollen grains develop, and in each pollen grain are the sperm cells. The sperm cells are the male reproductive cells, so they are found in the anther. The anther is held or supported by a thin stalk we call the filament. Usually, the filaments are long so as to hold the anthers up high so that the pollen grains found in the anther could easily be dispersed by the wind to the stigma of the same flower or other flowers. Or it could be of just the right length, just so when pollinators visit the flower, the pollen grains in the anther will be able to stick to the body of the pollinators. And when the pollinators transfer to other flowers, the pollen grains that are stuck on the body of the pollinators will be transferred to the stigma of the flower that they are next visiting. Together, the stamens constitute the androecium, which is the male organ of the flower. Then we have the fourth whorl, the pistil, also called gynoecium. Gynoecium. Its pistil consists of the stigma, the style, and the ovary. So the semi-expanded top is the stigma. This one is sticky, just so any pollen grains transferred by the wind or by pollinators could easily stick here. So the pollen grain should first stick to the stigma so that a pollen tube could develop and transport the sperm cells to the ovary. and fertilize the egg cell and the polar nuclei. So that the style here is not just a stalk, it's also a tube that will allow for the passage of another tube, a pollen tube that is growing from the pollen grain, to convey two sperm cells towards the ovary to fertilize the egg cell and the polar nuclei. So this now is the expanded base, which is the ovary, containing the ovule. There could be one or several ovules in the ovary. It depends upon the flower. In my diagram, I have drawn only one ovule. Now, each ovule is surrounded by an integument. And it has an opening, which we call the micropyle. So that's the opening, the micropyle. The opening is important here to allow double fertilization. As I've mentioned a while ago, one pollen grain that got stuck in the stigma will grow a pollen tube. It grows here and carries two sperm cells towards the ovule. One sperm cell will fertilize the egg cell to form the zygote, which in turn will develop into an embryo and which will finally grow into a new plant. So this egg cell is the female reproductive cell. This is an important cell, the most important cell actually in the ovule or in the ovary. This one is this entire cell is the central cell containing two haploid nuclei inside, which we call the polar nuclei. When fertilized, this one will become a triploid endosperm, which will serve to nourish the developing embryo. So as you could see here, this is the entire ovule now, surrounded by the integument, and there are seven cells here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But this one has two nuclei. So if you consider the nuclei, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nuclei there. Well, these cells will die after fertilization, and only these ones will remain important. Of course, the most important here will be the egg cell. That's the female reproductive cell, which when fertilized will become the zygote, the embryo, and the new plant. And this one, when fertilized, will form the endosperm that will nourish the developing embryo. That is why the pistil is considered as the female reproductive organ, simply because it is the one that contains the egg cell, which is the female reproductive cell. Now we also have other structures which are not reproductive in nature. Here you see the receptacle. This is roughly cup-shaped, and it serves to support the four whorls. So it serves to support the sepals, the petals, the stamens, and the pistil. And then here is a stalk we call the peduncle. This is the stalk that now attaches the flower to the stem, so that the flower could also receive its water supply, mineral supply, and nutrient supply. So this is the generalized flower. For a more detailed study of the structure of the flower, we will dissect an actual flower in the next video. Dissect and then identify the parts of a real flower. And then I will go next time to other videos like the detailed processes of pollination and double fertilization. What happens to the parts of the flower after fertilization? What are the types of flowers? How do fruits develop? What are the types of fruits? And so on. So join me in my next videos as so that I could continue discussing the plant starting from the flower in series. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, please. I hope you have learned something today. Thank you and good day.